Part 1. Rise of the industry. After and during the Civil War, the U.S. began to rapidly advance in many fields and aspects, production-wise and innovation-wise. The industry as a whole coming to grow, including many things like oil and fuel production, mining efforts, transportation, and breakthroughs in many simple household and everyday items that are a part of life like the light bulb. As Americans began to spread out throughout the U.S., a newer form of transportation was needed, the railroad system. The railroad system linked many states, making it easier to move and transport goods. With these new advancements, it became clear the U.S. was now a world-leading industrial power. New inventions like the telephone, to even crazier inventions like dynamite, changed the lives of many millions of Americans with an ever-growing economy. In this video today, we will be talking about the rise of the industry, as well as all the factors that played into the development of the economy and industrial U.S. The inventions, patents, and inventors that shaped the way for it all to happen. In this video, we will cover the discovery of abundant resources in the U.S., early oil and kerosene production, early steel production, and the invention of the light bulb, and how dynamite shaped the way mining was done overall. As Americans began to move out west and settle down, they began to discover the abundance of resources right under their feet. In 1887, 100-mile long and 3-mile wide iron deposits were found in the Mesabi Range of Minnesota. As well as the discovery of these iron deposits, there was also the discovery of massive coal deposits. Coal mining skyrocketed, going from 33 million tons mined in 1870 to more than 250 million tons mined by 1900. During all of this, the biggest and probably by far the most profitable empire would emerge, the oil industry. However, it had already been discovered long before Europeans arrived in the US, and natives had already been using crude oil for many things like medicines and waterproofing for structures. Americans didn't see any practical use for this crude oil until 1840, when Americans began turning this crude oil into kerosene for lamps. This process of turning crude oil into kerosene was invented by Abraham Pineo Gesner. It wasn't until 1859 that Edwin L. Drake used a steam engine for oil extraction, which made it practical to drill for oil. And with this, the oil boom started, spreading to Kentucky, Indiana, and later Texas. It was also discovered that during this process of turning oil into kerosene, they could make a new market off the byproduct of this process, gasoline. This new market brought in waves of new entrepreneurs from Cleveland and Pittsburgh hoping to make a quick buck off kerosene production. In a time of innovation, many great inventions were made as well as many discoveries. One major invention that shaped the U.S. into what it would become was the Bessemer still process, invented by Henry Bessemer. This process involved forcing air through molten iron to remove any impurities and imperfections. In turn, this process made an extremely strong, non-rusting metal. The Bessemer process was used to make over 90% of steel in the U.S. By 1860, open hearth enabled manufacturers to produce steel from scrap metal, causing it to be even cheaper to produce. With an ever-growing economy, and with the influx of people moving out west, there was high demand for steel for railroads and buildings, to house the many people that would arrive in the West. This steel was at high demand because of its strength and low-cost process of making steel from the iron. The railroad industry would go on to produce and purchase so much steel for the railroads that it caused an extreme demand for steel, prices going from as low as $15 to over $120 a ton. During the 1800s, with the discovery of abundant resources in the West, mining was at an all-time high. Most mines traditionally in the early years of the 1800s used black powder and nitroglycerin explosives to blast rock away in search for these ore deposits. But with these explosions came many accidents due to nitroglycerin being an extremely sensitive and unstable explosive. The worst coal mine explosion disaster in the USA in the 1800s occurred in the L'Oreal mine in Virginia on March 13, 1884, and it resulted in 112 fatalities. The loss felt by these many accidents led to Swedish chemist and engineer Alfred Nobel, creator and recipient of the Nobel Prize, to start experimenting with nitroglycerin and black powder in search of a way to make a newer and more stable explosive. In 1864, Alfred filed for a patent for synthesizing nitroglycerin using sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and glycerin. After this, Alfred founded the company Nitroglycerin Attaket Bolaget. I don't know, it's a Swedish word. In Vitterviken, to work in a more isolated area, and then moved to Germany where he founded another company, Dynamit Nobel. Nitroglycerin was thought to be an unsafe component to work with in explosives, being its instability causing it to be difficult to transport and handle, until Nobel tried mixing the nitroglycerin with a sorbent diatomaceous earth from the Elbe River in Hamburg near his factory, which stabilized the nitroglycerin, making a more portable explosive. Nobel obtained the patents for his inventions in England on the 7th of May 1867 and in Sweden on the 19th of October 1867. After its introduction, dynamite rapidly gained wide-scale use as a safe alternative to black powder and normal nitroglycerin. Although dynamite was a great breakthrough in explosives research, the US didn't really see its widespread use until the 20s. Dynamite's use transformed the nation and the industry. It led to the construction of important milestones like the Transcontinental Railroad and helped create iconic American monuments like Mount Rushmore.
As the industry grew more and more, a man by the name of Humphrey Davy was messing around with wires and connected them to some batteries he had laying around. This small invention glowed, and it gave him an idea that would forever change the lives of many millions of Americans as well as the world. Light bulbs. Davy, with the help of Edison, perfected the incandescent light bulb. Patented in 1880 and later invented an entire system for producing and distributing electrical power. Thomas Alva Edison helped with the production. The first production were all the very first demos, leading on to 1920. The light bulb was in need of improvements and was mass-produced. Some improvements were the ability to illuminate with wires. There are also different types of light bulbs/lights. There's some made for different types of lights. Some are brighter than others, and some are different colors. For example, incandescent is a bulb with a glass chamber. It's either a vacuum or full of gas, such as argon. Argon is a chemical element which is the third most abundant in the Earth's atmosphere. These light bulbs would reach up to 1,730 to 3,030 Celsius, 3,140 to 5,480 Fahrenheit. This causes the EC European Commission to completely ban these light bulbs in 2012.
The US went through some pretty tough times in its founding, but we were happy to have been able to show the rise of the industrial side of things and how it shaped the US into the great country it is today, covering the railroad system, the steel that laid it, the oil, and the dynamite that cleared the way for mining and construction, and the light bulb that lit the way through it all.